and welcome back to our podcast, Three Brown Ladies. Yay!
So if you're new to our podcast, we're a mother and two daughters podcast.
Kieran.
Family podcast.
Ami.
Kieran, Ami and Pam. And we are back again with Manimadness, who collaborates with us on these podcasts, because if you don't know her, you should know her. You need to check out her blog posts, and we've linked them all down below. But she really talks about some personal, quite traumatic but very interesting topics that you need to check out. But Mani, do you want to give a bit more elaboration on it?
That was such a great intro. Also, I'm incredibly funny.
Yeah,
with all the trauma in the
with all the trauma in the first.
I have got a personality.
Yeah, thanks for having me on again.
Very funny.
Quick disclaimer: we're going to be talking about some really dark topics today. Some of them include rape, sexual harassment, abuse, and if you're gonna struggle to listen to these sort of topics, or you might be affected by these topics, please don't listen to this any further. And also, these are just our own personal experiences and opinions. So if you do listen, please just
leave your comment and what you feel like, and if you got any story, please do tell us.
Yeah, do share and respect that we are just basing this podcast on our own opinions and experiences. So no blanket judgments.
And also we would like to aware other people's and help other community, our girls, females community, so where they can live freely in future. So we try to make future better for everyone.
Yes, that's very lovely, Mom. So following on the recent news of Prince Andrew and Jeffrey Epstein, we thought it's really important to talk about sexual predators, harassment, and if people don't know about what's happened, Jeffrey Epstein was obviously a convicted sexual predator. He sex trafficked young females from other countries, and obviously made them work for him, and obviously sold them to millionaires across the world. And Prince Andrew's been caught up in these scandals.
So I've only read the headlines because I kind of refuse to delve too deeply into this story. I've obviously heard what's happened, just because it's one of those things that sometimes I'm not always in the right frame of mind to read, because I'm one of these people that once I read something, I end up in a deep rabbit hole of research and needing to know every bit of information. And as someone who has been sexually abused, it's kind of sometimes too upsetting to go down that route, which is my own way of I think protecting myself, because I do get really invested. But in terms of sexual harassment, it's kind of broad. And what really pisses me off these days is men saying things like, oh, you can't say that now because you'll get done for it, and blah, blah, blah. And they take it to an extreme. They're almost trivializing what's happening. It's almost right, because somebody doesn't like you touching a certain way, they then feel offended. That, oh, it wasn't like this in my day, but the world has changed. Women are no longer just your typical secondary staff, secretaries or whatever, that can be abused and whatever. We have our own voices, and it's not a bad thing.
Women won't accept the behaviour that men used to put on them.
Exactly. And I've had work experiences where I think it's one of those things that when it's happening to you, you don't understand, and even though you feel uncomfortable, especially in my 20s when I wasn't as vocal, you feel uncomfortable. I had this one instance. We went up to Newcastle for a night out with a customer, and you could tell that he kind of liked me. I was quite young, and he kept putting his hand up. He kept putting his hand on my knee, and I thought, you know what, fine, whatever. He's a bit older. I'll let it be. And then I was really cold, because I'm always cold. Sorry. I'm probably 26, 27 at this point.
Oh gosh. And how old was he?
He was in his 50s. Yeah.
It's the old man.
Yeah, and then we were walking, and I was cold, so he gave me his cardigan. And while we were waiting for some colleagues, he kind of trapped me in a corner of a building to keep me warm. And it was his way of like almost being like that physically close to me. And I was just like, afterwards, I'm like, that wasn't normal. That's wrong.
Really not normal.
Even
How did you get out of that situation?
I think because my colleagues were coming down the road, I managed to just like wiggle out and give him his cardigan back, because I'm like, I'd rather be cold than accept this. And he kept trying to like get me to sit on his knee and stuff like that. It was proper gross. But I'm one of those people that I don't like confrontation, so I'll just laugh it off and not say anything. And to be fair, I even do that a little bit now, just because I hate confrontation and stuff like that. But I do need to get better. So I've had a few incidents like that. And even things like men sitting on the edge of your desk, it's like a power thing, right? With their legs wide open and they're looking down on you while you're working at your computer. And that kind of thing I hate as well.
Yeah, and even like me as like a really strong woman, like I would say I'm quite strong, but I can understand, like, especially when you're young and more naive to these things, and you think that you always look at the good in people, so you think that how could they're like in a, they're in authority position, that you think that they wouldn't abuse that, but in reality, as you get older and you start researching into it and you start growing up, you realize actually if it feels wrong in your gut, it's wrong. And that used to always be my thought process, was that, oh, how can they be doing that, or like maybe I'm thinking too much into it. But that's what I've learned, and what I would teach my children is, if you've got something in your gut that feels wrong, you need to say something, and it is wrong.
Yeah, I definitely think that a lot of men in higher sort of positions definitely use that as their advantage.
Take advantage.
And especially, I've seen it so many times when you see like older men and they're trying to use their power on younger women, and they think that, oh, they can try and get you to do things for them to get more things, and try and it's horrible.
I know what you mean, and we don't want to say that all men in power are doing it. We just want to raise awareness to women, just to know that there are people that are doing it. So if you feel that way, then you're not alone. Almost like I think everyone, sadly, I think every woman can say that they've experienced it one time where they felt uncomfortable or they've had some sort of sexual harassment, which is really sad.
And it's also how comfortable we still feel, even to this day, reporting it. Because I think there's still a lot of victim blaming, or it'll be passed off as banter. Like I read a LinkedIn article recently about a woman who was working for this massive corporate, and she was bullied and sexually harassed, but no one believed her. And she kind of just laughed it off and went along with it, up until the point where she had to leave because she was suffering with depression. She wasn't eating anymore. So not only does it have an impact on your working life, it has an impact on your mental and physical health. And I think there's like a study that says that if you're sexually harassed every day over a period of 6 months or a year, that causes like a long-lasting damage. Like, there doesn't even have to be anything physical. You don't even have to have been touched or raped. But the impact of that sexual harassment over that period of time causes so much damage to women. I guess men suffer too, but we're talking about our experiences here. And that causes such a massive impact that she had to leave, and she no longer felt... And she'd even reported it to HR, and they didn't believe her, and they didn't take appropriate action. This person was then promoted, and it was just like incredible how men just get away with it. Or there's still a sense of victim blaming.
Do you know what they were doing or saying?
They were making comments about her clothes, about her body, things like that. Maybe touching her inappropriately, like on the leg and the thigh, on the back, lower back. And I think it's little things. So like someone goes to give you a kiss and their hand is lower than it should be, and
That's
it's just
so
little
inappropriate
things.
At work. I can't even express.
But even like if you think
really
about, because you and
crazy.
I network, so even think about your interactions when you've been out networking and stuff like that, and when someone's made you feel uncomfortable because they're just a little bit too close or they're a little bit over familiar. Now I'm quite a touchy-feely person. I never used to be, but I am. So I don't know if sometimes guys will be like, oh, well, she was coming on to me, because she's like this, that and the other, and they interpret it a wrong way.
That's another problem as well, is the interpretation of women's behaviour.
Yeah, I think it's because we as a female, we don't really know. I think we need to learn what the signal we are giving away, so
That's true.
they feel as a signal, oh, she's ready. That's what they think. That's what I was learning about this sexual abuse, and why the men, point of men,
the male point of view.
view, how they think is, they think we inviting this, through the signal. If
And I suppose I can understand that.
Yeah,
sometimes.
if we try to laugh, if they make a joke or something and we start laugh, and like sometimes they give you like dirty jokes and you start with it, and I normally say, this is a few things I don't like. I don't like dirty jokes. I don't like too close to me, and I don't like too family, too
Close,
like to relax with me. And then they know the standards. If like if like someone's sitting on your desk and just say, oh, can you not do that because I'll feel uncomfortable.
And I think
we
but then
need
there's
to,
some people who get afraid of saying that sort of stuff.
that's it. That's what I'm trying to tell girls, please, okay, you have a voice and you have a control, and you do, if people don't listen to you, you have a choice to go and leave the situation. If someone's sitting on your desk and they're not moving, you get up and move, go to toilet, go to make a cup of tea. So don't give these people a chance to carry on what they are doing. Even your situation, if like you feel like someone's too close, you step back. Naturally they'll understand you stepping back. That means you're not giving them what they want. And they'll figure it out by themselves. That's naturally built in their mind as well. Even our mind, if someone's stepping back, we know she's not ready, so they'll understand it.
Yeah, I've started to do that a bit more. I'm not vocal about when someone makes me feel uncomfortable, but I'll make physical changes to my own like body language, that kind of thing.
Yeah, and I would say it's maybe a British culture thing. So like our culture is very, you're obviously mom's been brought up in India, so our culture is very passive. It's like you don't really say those things, you don't make other people feel uncomfortable. It's in our culture. The actual culture is about, everyone jokes about it, that we're too polite as a society. So that's what I would encourage more people to do, is actually, and it is actually really difficult, mom, to when you're in that uncomfortable position, to actually say something is actually really difficult. So even sometimes I've struggled, and I'm a stronger person. So I get your point, and I do think we need to start raising our voices more.
Examples
of someone.
I'll try and think of some. I try and blank them all out, any memories.
Because older people are the most taking advantage of younger people. Younger people, they like 12 years old, they've been trafficking because they are poor girls.
You're talking about Prince Andrew now, aren't you?
Andrew, yeah, and Jeffrey Epstein. He used to target these girls. They were like younger and really like
come from a poor background.
So they didn't have to say, they didn't have the authority, or that no one's going to believe them. And he used to bring them home, and he had his girl. She used to groom them girl.
What was her name?
Maxwell.
Yeah.
Something Maxwell, her name is.
Yeah.
And she used to groom them, and then the first one to have sex with the girls, and then he just pass it on to the other ones. And that is, it shows it's not just only him, it's linked with the Bill Clinton, top of professor, politics. All these men, they are doing all together these dirty stuff, and that's why police or the not real law, or not, it doesn't stop. That's why it needs continuously, because of these big powerful people. They controlling everything, and that's the reason. Girls, I know is uncomfortable to say or feel. Don't be afraid. If one person doesn't listen, go to next one. It doesn't listen. Just these days, you got media, you got platform of internet, and that's why we are here. One by yourself, you feel alone, But if you got few girls behind you, few women behind you, you can do it.
I was gonna say, I personally feel like the Prince Andrew and Jeffrey Epstein is not the first.
No.
I think there's plenty of powerful men and women like that Maxwell doing these things
And abusing their power.
Abusing the power. It's like it's the money and the power, and they are allowed to do this.
They don't think women are we have any mind, we actually are just to please them. That's what they think, and they are so blinded and they are so brought up this way, so they don't know right and wrong. And I think it's time is change, and they need to learn no means bloody no. They need to know is we are females, our feelings, and we not there for just only came here to just
Please the man.
Please the man. We are here to help and raise and bring the happiness, not just like
It just basically bringing equality, isn't it?
Yeah.
but it's like it's not happened. Sorry, it's not happened in just like here, British or America or something. It's happened every country. Every country have a same problem. All the authority just abuse young girl.
But what do you think is it rape, or what is the problem?
Do you know, because you mentioned other people, Harvey Weinstein a few years ago.
Yeah.
And no one believed the first actress that came out to say that he'd raped her until others came out. And I know that's what prompted the whole Me Too movement.
Yeah. And even with R. Kelly, people still question the validity of the girls.
But then the same thing happened in India with, who was the actor really famous? He was in loads of he always played the really he played the dad, not Amitabh Bachchan, it was someone else.
Nana Patekar.
Yeah, not
Nana Patekar.
Another
one.
Yeah, I can't remember his name. Alok something Alok.
Oh yeah, I don't remember.
Yeah.
I know that.
So, and then nobody believed that she'd been raped by him, and then the whole Me Too movement came out, and a load of other women said that this had happened, and people are starting to raise their voices, but there is still always this thing of victim blaming. When I was looking into the Harvey Weinstein case, again, I went down this rabbit hole and watching all the interviews and the documentaries that had been made. I don't even think it's about sex. It's just about power, but the fact that they know that they can get away with it, and I think that's half the battle. It's never anything to do with pleasure. It's the fact that they are in a position of control, and if, like, for instance, obviously in the movie industry, if it can make and break your career, then you're in a vulnerable position that you're coming up to these men, and I guess it's in any industry, and these men take advantage of that to get what they want.
And that's why women will not speak up or find it difficult to raise their voice, because nothing, like you said about that girl, a lot of the time nothing will get done about it, which is really sad.
And she's discredited, not him. Yeah.
And then 2 is that if you do say something, there is a risk you'll either lose your job, you won't get that promotion. Like, that's the reality of it, and that's what we have to fight as women.
I think women, I think, if you really want to change this situation, just don't worry about these kind of things, obviously, because sometimes your family is gonna against you, because they're gonna say, oh, why are you saying this, because what people will say about us.
What would you do if it was your boss and they were doing like sexual things towards you and making you feel uncomfortable? What would your advice would you give to that person?
I would say just tell him straight, this is have a courage. Say
I think it's quite hard just to be like,
that's what we
tell them.
Yeah, listen,
it's hard, Mom. You can't just be like, oh yeah, just tell them. Like, how are you gonna? It's your boss.
It's very difficult for Mom because she's not been in that corporate environment in the sense of like it's really political. It's very, isn't it?
Yeah.
Corporate
It's a
environments are
hierarchy.
very
It's
political.
And it's very evidence-based. You
Yeah.
can't go in without evidence.
Yeah.
And
You
you
have
can't
to
go
say-
in with a feeling, if that makes sense. Like, you feel threatened by XYZ because they've made you feel uncomfortable. Like, it
But
has
then probably is there should be a law then.
There are laws, isn't there?
There are.
Yeah, so then they have to follow it. It's because they're not following it because girls are too afraid. Because it's like you guys. If I can pick it up, you guys are too afraid of your reputation. Or what about I'm not gonna. You already have a fear in your mind. Oh, they're not gonna listen to me because of this. And this is fear actually stopping you to go and complain against them. Yeah.
Yeah, I get that because like we've had experiences. So like I've had an experience where there was in a previous. I'm just going to do it really vaguely, but basically to sum up, there was someone abusing their power, and they were reported against, and nothing got done because they were covered by someone in a very senior position. So that person became untouchable, basically.
Yeah.
So no matter how much anything was getting reported against that person, nothing happened for years, and they were allowed to stay in a very senior position for years. And it was only until something happened in the company, like a structural change, where that person's stuff got investigated how it should have been, but it took years.
And
It doesn't matter.
And
Listen.
wait a minute. And he used to hire young girls, didn't he? He used to hire a lot of young girls.
And to be fair, I actually stood up for myself in that situation, and luckily I never actually got abused, and that person, and I got hated, and I had to move jobs and stuff, because that's the reality of it. Is it's like, you're not going to get promoted by someone like that if you stand up for your beliefs and stuff. And my friends around me, we were all like that. We were all not going to get abused by this person, but the people who did get abused and did report didn't get justice.
Yeah.
And it was years later that something happened to this person, which took a long time, but so I agree with Mom that things should, you should always raise your opinion and be strong, and I have done that in my previous experiences, but the reality of it is why we're trying to
Nothing gonna be happened immediately.
make people understand.
Yeah.
And we're trying to make
Yeah.
people understand, as we're trying to talk about why people get scared as well.
Yeah, let me want to finish off these things. Things not gonna be happened immediately. It's gonna take some time. It's gonna take some years. But if we keep,
But if it was your boss, don't you think you should just
Which one's my water?
I don't know.
if
grab me
your
one, I'm
boss
thirsty.
I personally think that you should either try and move jobs and
if your
You
boss,
should definitely
right, okay,
report. I do believe
Yeah,
you should
it's
report.
a report or tell him straight. I feel
But
uncomfortable.
why, you wouldn't want to be at a job where you feel uncomfortable.
But you need to report and then move. If nothing
I
gets
personally think that you should try and move if you can.
report
Because it's
first.
Don't run. This
You
is
can't
run
report
away.
and go away.
Yeah,
That
report.
person, if that person's gonna stay there, they
report
they
it.
can't do stuff if you don't have evidence, and evidence is the key.
No,
And if
they might
These
do
things
something
are-
with it. So you can report it. If something happens to that person, then you
Then
just
you
judge it. But if nothing changes, then you move.
Yeah.
But there are
don't
a lot of
try to
times-
run. Girls are running and not hiding. This is a problem.
Yeah, but you
is
don't want
not
to be
a-
at work feeling uncomfortable, Mom.
I was going to say that it sucks that it takes years, and again, it comes back down to you as an individual having to move. So even if you did report and move, you've reported someone who's then going to just abuse other girls behind you. And I think it's going to take a strength of character to understand that this could take years and your reputation could get damaged. But if you have the strength and the power and will and the conviction to do it, I think you should stand up for yourself. But not everyone does that. A lot of people will move on and they'll deal with the consequences themselves, and it'll have a massive impact on their own mental health. But I think what's happening is even if you report and run and nothing gets done for years, you think about those years, if you're being abused, and then the years after you've left, how many other women or even men are going to get abused? And it's like you say, it's that they're untouchable and that they know, unless it has a detrimental impact to the business and their reputation, they're not going to care internally. Like, how often have you heard racist abuse and people are still in positions of power but because nobody calls them out on it. Oh, it's just banter. You know, it's that kind of analogy, isn't it, that people are untouchable as a manager.
So really what we're saying is actually, well, while we're talking about it, it's not as much, women have to do something about it, of course, but really the responsibility lies with the regulator, doesn't it? So like HR have to do something, or the people in power have to do something. That's actually a really important point, because I think as much as you can report it or leave the job or whatever, that person will continue to do something unless they are prosecuted or unless something happens to them, fired from the job.
And
we need to
another
take action as people in. If you're in an authoritative role, HR, anything like that, I think you need to take your job very seriously and give justice where it's deserved.
Don't afraid of, because she's probably are hired by him.
Yeah,
as
HR
well.
can have that fear as well.
Yeah, because they are the people as well. So it's like don't hold yourself back. And also I think just if like 4 or 5 people talk about your colleague in the environment, probably they gone through the same thing. And if you are group going to the HR, you got more strong case against the person.
Some good advice, to be fair, because that's what happened with him to take him down.
So it's like if not 1 for 5 people going to with the same issues, and obviously someone has to listen, and that's the only way you guys gonna get somewhere. We're gonna get somewhere, Angie.
Yeah, I was gonna say, it's like this thing at work, because a lot of people always say that, oh yeah, you're very, to me especially, say that I'm very like vocal and I'm not afraid to sort of say, and then I'm always like, oh, why is that a problem? And then I always say like, what? Oh, is that like something wrong? Like, whereas like I feel like a lot of other people think that I should, you should not be so like direct and like so open. And I feel like everyone should be not like me, but I feel like everyone should be like be allowed to be open and not be judged. Because
that's true.
A lot of people do look at like say to me, oh,
you should be proud. Say, I'm proud of who I am.
I say, oh, is that a problem?
Yeah,
that's what I say. I say, is that a problem? Like,
I think because you doing that, one day someone you can influence to other, because they want to be like that but they can't. So that's why they are saying, oh, why you are like that, holy, slowly they will able to pick up the courage and be
and
like
everyone
yourself.
Always makes fun and say that, oh, I've I go around and I tell everyone, stuff. But I think it's like a good trait. It's
a good trait. You should be proud.
Yeah. I get that as well, to be fair. People have said that to me, and I suppose I've never really picked up on it. But yeah, I've people say that to me about being really direct, and they said they've never met someone so black and white. And I'm like, I think you're right. Maybe there is that missing in the world, and like more people, don't be offended by that. Just have the courage to do it. Just say how you feel. I think that's really important, actually. That's probably half the battle there. People are too scared to say what they feel. Then there's all the other added pressures of nothing's going to happen and whatever.
Yeah, I'm like you. I've been told I'm black and white as well.
Really?
Like, I've been told that there's no grey area in my life, that I just, like, there is no shade of grey.
It's good,
apart from in my living room.
I think you always know where you stand.
Yeah, basically. And I think I'm sometimes too honest. And I get what you're saying as well, Corinne, is just like, I get told that I'm too emotional, but I get passionate about something. So yeah, my emotions are going to be at the surface, but people using the whole "you're too emotional" like it's a weakness is actually, through therapy and stuff, I realise it's not, because I'm more attuned to how I'm feeling and what I stand for than someone who doesn't understand their emotions and they're ignoring it. Yeah, so I'm like, so what? Yeah, I'm not suppressing how I'm feeling, and sometimes I think it's about articulating a certain situation. And in the corporate world, it's very hard to navigate this whole there is a hierarchy as well, and just like navigating it and knowing where you fit and how people are protected. Yeah, that's a big problem.
Yeah, so we talked quite a lot about sexual harassment, but I was thinking we could also talk about just abuse of young children. So I think this is a really, really, really important topic as I've got older. I think Mum's telling off a drawing on our table.
Sorry.
Yeah, so as I've got older, I've realised how many people actually get abused as children, and we were very lucky because Mum was so over the top with it when we were younger. I remember she used to never trust anyone with us unless they'd been vetted by her. But I remember as a child I used to be like, oh my gosh, Mum and Dad are like being really over the top here. But now listening to documentaries and stuff, I've realised how many people, Mum, it's so common, like how many people actually get abused as a child. So I think we should talk about that as well. So from a parent's point of view, what could you give?
I think
Advice?
Again, parent, you need to be educated yourself as well. And if your child's saying something, believe your child rather than your the family.
That's a really good point, Mum.
Yeah, because it's like if there is most of like uncles or aunts or whatever, they are the one who's abusing your child because they are the
Or babysitters.
or baby,
anyone.
yeah, who are
Close to
actually
the
close
child.
to the child. If your child pick up the language, if your child feel uncomfortable with the person and he or she doesn't want to go to the person, and or your child get tense with that person, that says law, that says that person, the child doesn't like the person. It doesn't matter whatever the reason, make sure you would not force your child to go to the person. And if your child is able to speak, and just listen, ask a nice question. You don't have to be direct, just ask a nice question. Get a go to Google, go to YouTube, how you can ask the question to your child. I had one incident where it's like I wouldn't take a name. My son had a rash on his stomach, and no one would have found out unless someone pick his t-shirt and go to see.
Basically, he had a vest on, like a banana,
Yeah.
and then a top on. So his banana was like tucked into his trousers,
Yeah.
and then a top on top.
Okay.
So and then someone came to me and said, "Oh, your son had a rash or whatever. You have to be, make sure he get it treated." That was a third person came, and I clicked immediately. I thought, "Oh my God, how does the other person know he has a rash? Only I know, even my husband doesn't know he has had a rash at that point." And after that, I just stopped my son to go to that third party. And I told my husband, I'm not, this is incident happened. I'm not gonna let my son to go to the person. And I was really, really aware that my children, three of my children would not go to the person. And I also very, very my husband and we used to look for all these things, all the friends, all the parents, make sure they're not doing anything suspicious.
Yeah, sorry. So I was just going to say, because obviously when we studied this at law, because at part of criminal law you study rape, and the statistics is actually that the stranger danger cases are very, very low. The statistically it's actually higher with someone, rape is actually higher with someone So it's really hard for families, and we know a story of someone who got raped at a very young age and their mom didn't believe them, and they ran away from home. And then unfortunately it's the mum spoken about it after, and it's because it's just so hard to believe that your brother or your cousin brother can do that to your child. You just cannot fathom it. But unfortunately, my advice would be, it might be really difficult and painful to understand, or you might not be able to ever understand it. But if your child is saying that it's happening, or if, like Mum said, she probably didn't want to believe that, she probably didn't want to put those thoughts together that yes, that person would lift up my child's top, but she could feel it. So that's my advice, is that even though it's so hard, these things unfortunately do happen. Uncles, mothers, brothers, dads, like it is very,
Do
very,
you know
very
what?
common.
If like sometimes it's like if you're alcoholic people around you, be aware of them as well, because sometimes they lose their mind and they don't know what they are doing. I don't know if it's like they don't know, but I always believe they do know, but they take the drink as a excuse. Do not let your children go to these kind of people, and just be very, very protective over your children. This, giving independence is different, but protecting your child is really, really important, because your child is their life. They're gonna make or break. This is the situation.
I've always felt that, like, if you've been abused as a child, it's something that's always going to sit with you. So it's just try your hardest as a parent to, like Mum said, protect that child from these people. Oh, it's so difficult though to. So, Kieran, what were you going to say?
Oh, sorry. So, what I was going to say was, when I was younger, a lot of my friends had like split parents, so it would be my friend's dad, or usually the dad, and then my dad used to get so like crazy about like me staying over and or like me going over to their house and stuff, especially if it was a man, and I used to be really confused and be like why, like really, like why. And then, like, luckily, like, nothing ever happened, because obviously we were fine. But it's good that he had that in me, just to make sure to be safe and to be careful, because unfortunately this sort of stuff does happen, whether we like it or not.
I know.
And yes, it's like if your child is staying over, next morning or day after, ask questions. What they have done, where do they sleep, who do they sleep with, did they get up in the middle of the night, did they take off any clothes, things like that. And then you pick up the stuff, and if you feel something is not right, it's not right. Just just accept it. I know probably it's going to be hard, probably it's going to be difficult, you don't want to know, you don't want to hear it. Just take it. Take the hint and protect your child. Your child is the most responsible. No, you have to be responsibility over your own feeling, but your child is the first one you need to be support.
Yeah, I agree with everything that you've said. I don't know of any. Well, I wasn't allowed to go out anywhere, so I didn't really have that exposure to potential predators. I do remember getting chased by a man in a bush in a park once. Me and my friend had to run from home. Oh, and there was a few incidents like that where I think your sixth sense just picks up certain dangers, doesn't it? But I never told my parents about it. And I think, like you've said, do trust your children. And part of me gets so angry when I hear that it's like, oh, it's an uncle or it's a cousin or it's a brother or whoever, and it just makes me wonder why mums aren't doing more to protect. And I guess it comes down to not feeling like they have that power to say anything to a male in the family. Like if it's about your child, like they don't have the courage to then call it out, if that makes sense. Or it's just almost easier to brush it under the carpet for fear of not being believed, but also maybe even being abused themselves.
Yeah, maybe.
Like the whole hierarchy thing, like it's a woman
like
not feeling.
Power.
Yeah, but sometimes I know women can be complicit in these things, and they don't want to shame the family and stuff like that, which I know does happen.
But sometimes it's like say you grown up with your brother, you got a bond together, and you don't really want to see him doing that.
You don't want to believe it,
yeah, true. No, you do. That is very true, and like
it's difficult.
It is difficult because I know of girls who have been abused by family members, like uncles and stuff, and even within my own family there have been incidents around certain members of the family, like older men, that they make you feel uncomfortable. And obviously as a teenager you don't know what that is, because you're still naive and you think, because we're because we're raised and instilled with the notion of respect your elders, and I think sometimes that gets a bit confusing.
Yeah, it's very grey, isn't it?
That might be our only grey area, because I think that applies to work and other situations in our life that you just, because we've been told to respect a hierarchy, haven't we? We've been told to respect our parents and the police and everyone. Yeah, so it gets a bit
I think probably school or something or somewhere needs to be.
They talk about it.
Respect is a different, and when
they talk about rape, they talk about sex, they police come in, they do all sorts. Everyone's aware of rape, everyone's aware of the abuse. It's just how we actually tackle it in society, sort of thing. So when you was talking about your own stories, how did you pluck up the courage to to talk us through that, I suppose?
Do you know, I've never actually said, I think I just talk about them in passing. I wrote a blog about, I guess, I think it was when Harvey Weinstein case came out a couple of years ago, and I wrote a few scenarios about, I guess you would call it sexual harassment, like the case with the guy in the cardigan, and I wrote about it in a blog. But I've never actually sort of just called it out for what it is. And I'm thinking about my life now in Birmingham, and there've probably been instances even now, I can't think of an example per se, but where men have made me uncomfortable in certain situations, but you just laugh it off and move away. And I don't know if it's a female thing or if it's the fact that we're so uncomfortable that's our coping mechanism, is that we are always the one that having to move away, and it takes a strength of character, because if you do confront it, you're then seen to be too confrontational. You can't win either way, can you? My friend will call out idiots who honk at her, she'll shout back at them. If they wolf whistle, she'll say something, but then she's seen as the bad guy. She's seen as the one that's causing an issue, and it's it's just a bit of fun, but that's where it starts. And
so maybe we should actually, as women,
we should just call it out more.
I think we need to stick together. And it's, say for
Mm.
example, if something happened in your office, or Kiran, if somebody things happen, and you can come to us, and we actually go to your office, 4 or 5 women,
and
need
to stick together.
Listen, this is happening. It needs to be stopped.
That's
Otherwise,
what I was just about to say. If I ever feel uncomfortable, I always say to someone, I always
seek for advice
and say, oh, this has just happened, or I felt really bit uncomfortable then, what should I do? Because I think it's inside you get this weird feeling.
You just know in your gut.
Yeah,
that was a bit weird, or that was made me feel a bit uncomfortable.
I've just had a thought, and I guess I think if you have male managers or even HR, I feel like there's a fine line, because if you're seen to be the kind of person who's quite outgoing, quite bubbly, quite touchy-feely anyway, you greet everybody, the people that you know, men and women, in an affectionate manner, and then this thing happens to you, you may not be believed as much, because they may just see it or perceive it to be that's your nature, if that makes sense. Or you're just a bit flirty, or you always hug X, Y and Z when you see them, so why is this case any different? And I guess that's where it gets a little trickier to try and explain,
I think,
because perception sometimes of your personality, because I think a lot of people perceive me to be a certain way,
or perception of that other person,
or that other person you. Absolutely.
And I think that's just him.
And I think that plays a massive part in how situations like this are then handled, I guess is the best way to describe it.
I think that's we discussed this before as well, flirting is just different than if you feel uncomfortable and they just go too far. You need to step up and just don't let it happen. If it's happened, just be, have a courage, just okay, if nothing gonna happen. But what people I think is a fear, we believe, it's gonna be end of the world, people not gonna like us anymore, people gonna think we are not nice people, or we are stupid, or whatever. Just don't let these thoughts hold you back. Just go ahead and do what is right for you. If you in the situation, if you feel uncomfortable, just just say it. I feel uncomfortable when you're saying that. We always have that problem, like not it's like in that situation, but if like people are making us uncomfortable or we don't like, I just say straight away,
Yeah.
I don't like that thing.
To be fair, I do feel a bit more empowered talking about it, that we need to, as women, actually probably start saying more and more to create a new reality, because I think we've just got so used to being suppressed or having to just deal with it as women. We probably do need to actually go the other way and say, actually, this is the line now. You men need to change, not us change as a woman.
Yeah. I do it so well in my dating life. I need to get better at the corporate thing. I shut you down.
Yeah. But we were quite young. I would say I was like 13, you were 15. And looking back at it now, you just don't realise that this is actually abuse, isn't it? So
we were on holiday basically, and we were on a family holiday, and we met this other family, and to cut a long story short, the dad of the other family just said something to me that was really inappropriate. So he had this motorbike, and then he took us on he was taking everyone on the bike sort of thing. And then he took me on the bike, and then as we went off, he said something really inappropriate to me. He told me to like press up against him, and I felt really uncomfortable, and I thought like he was going to do something to me. And then
when you got off,
I immediately, in that situation, I immediately like made him feel like that's not okay what you did. And I think he even like felt really embarrassed that he did it. And then he took me back. And then when
I was just about
and then they were going to put Kieran on, and then I was so young, and I was too ashamed to like tell mum and dad, because like that was their family, like not family, friend in that moment. Dad was like friends with it. I was like, how could I like, and you're contemplating like whether it's real as well. Then they were putting Kieran onto the bike,
and then she was like to me, like, don't get on, and I was just like, why? And I was just like,
and then Guinea zoomed off, and I was like, in that moment I felt like I'd like let her down, like I thought he was going to do something to you.
No, he didn't do anything. He didn't say anything. It was just like normal.
So when did you tell her that he'd said this to you?
She said,
I think I told you that night, didn't I?
That night, okay.
And then we were debating on whether to tell mom.
And they did, and
we didn't tell her until we got back.
I don't
we
think
didn't
so.
tell you
Can
until
you
we
remember?
got back.
I think it was we didn't. You told me the next day, and then we told you not. That's it. We're not gonna be with them now. Remember we was
like
having a dinner.
Because I think they left. They were going like the next day.
They was
or
like we was having a dinner, and you told me, and we was aware, and I think he picked up the energy. We already.
I don't think
we didn't tell you.
No, not Dad.
We definitely didn't tell Dad, and we definitely didn't tell you that night. We told you like a few days later or something.
I think we told her when we got back.
Or got back,
I think we told you when we got back.
I didn't want to tell her like at all.
We didn't know whether to tell you or not.
It was our first experience of this, wasn't it?
It was really crazy, wasn't it? Because we didn't know what to do.
And even personally, I just wanted to forget about the whole thing.
Yeah, and that's half the thing, I think, is that you want to just forget about it and move on.
It's creepy.
Yeah.
He was like 20, I don't know, 8, 9, and she was 15.
It was really bad.
I think it's what is the happened with the man. They have so much these experiences where girls hold everything back. If something happened to you, you would not told us. And the guy, he just in his head
would have got away with it.
So that's he's got like authority. That's
I think next time we should have told you straight away, and then we wouldn't have had to like.
Yeah, but we were children. We were scared.
So if like you are a young child, if you are like 12 or 10 or even 10 plus or whatever your age, it doesn't matter how old are you, even 5. If something happened or you haven't told your parent, please do so now. This is the chance. If you can't tell your parent, please tell your best friend
or counsellor. There's loads of helplines.
Just go with your friend, because that is easiest way you can able to tell your friend, and then just friend can tell your parents behalf of you if you got not have a courage, but do not hold yourself back. Do not suffer alone. You do not just.
That story.
What about say like that story? What because obviously we didn't tell you or whatever, what is this thing you can do? What can you do other than tell him off? Like, what could you have done?
You could have protected your child, can't you?
But I'm just saying, like, what, say if you have been raped or something, or even like touched or something, what would
then you would have to
be?
report it to the police. That person has to get prosecuted.
But what about something like that you can't like prosecute someone for just
Okay, then what
that's harassment.
probably
You can't touch people without their permission, Karen.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Yeah, that's
Oh,
illegal.
but it's like this is the thing. If one person go to tell him, if another person, you helping other person,
Yeah, they need to
so other person helping you helping her helping her. If I hold myself, everybody holding themselves, so these people, no one's actually telling them you are doing wrong. Probably in their mind it's okay.
Yeah.
In their mind they probably think it's okay to do these things.
Stop the cycle, basically.
Yeah. So it's just because they don't psyche here, they need to understand what is right. I'm not allowed to say these things, or I'm not allowed to touch that person. They don't feel comfortable, so I have to respect, I have to hold myself, because no one holding them back. They've got power to do whatever they want. So for example, Prince Andrew, he's in his eyes, he's a powerful, he's a prince of England or whatever he is, and he's that power. He has 2 daughters. That's the shame. He has 2 daughters, but he's still gone with the the young girls, like 14-15 years old. This is shows they don't have it. No one's taught them,
or they don't have that moral compass, or they don't have the consequence. That's the problem, I think. It's the
I think they
I don't understand is like, you've got kids of your own, so how can you like,
it's very
what
hard
mindset,
to get in their mind,
it's
though.
terrible. Like, and then I have to wonder, like, you would do anything to protect your children, yet you're doing this to someone else's children. Like, how messed up is that?
It's messed up because they don't know the right and wrong. I think for what
they
I
do,
can see,
but they just don't have the consequence on them.
they don't. I don't think they know what is right and what is wrong. Or if they know, they would not. If like we know is the right, what is right and wrong, you don't go. Yeah.
I watched a documentary on a rapist, and obviously, to cut a long story short, the first girl he raped wasn't believed, and she was told to take her statement back by the police, and that she even got prosecuted for it. It ruined her whole life. Then the guy continued to rape. He became a serial rapist, and these 2 women detectives became obsessed with it, and then they found the rapist, and when they interviewed him, he knew it was wrong. He kept saying it was this urge that he kept suppressing, and then eventually he had to do it or whatever. So he knew it was wrong, but he couldn't hold it back.
I'm not saying it's right and wrong. The urge, he doesn't know how to stop it.
No, so they do know they're wrong, but then there's no that either think they. So he said as well. He thought after the first one, he thought he was going to get caught, but then he didn't. So he did it again and again and again, because he ended up. And then he said,
So this is the way where I'm gonna try to.
So then that's why he was saying that he kept getting away with it, then he kept getting better at it, and then he kept learning how to cover up his tracks. And then even then, at the end, weirdly, so they were saying, when I was listening to it, they were basically saying that he didn't want to be interviewed by any policewoman, like a woman, because he found them intimidating.
Yeah, he found women. I've seen the same documentary.
And then he also said that he didn't want to go to trial because he didn't want to put the women through the trial. So it's fine for him to rape them and scar them, but then he didn't want them to relive it in trial. You can't understand these people. They know they're doing wrong. They think they're going to get away with it. And then when they don't, that's when they have to answer to it. And that's what happened with Prince Andrew. He knew it was wrong. He knew it. But he had the fame, the coverage, the everything. He got away with it. Protection.
I'm guessing he probably had people with him to help him protect.
Yeah, that's yeah.
Well. Like, I'm sure. Come on.
Yeah, because the Jeffrey, he had a security, because there was
They
a
all
powerful
millionaires.
they
knew as well.
probably they all doing it together.
Yeah.
That's the problem, isn't it? Because it's just men protecting each other. That's the thing, isn't it? Police
Yeah.
protecting the men, because the police doing it themselves as well, most of them.
Corrupt policemen.
Yeah, so everyone is the same thing.
Deary me.
I think
Got a lot to tackle in this world.
I think
When you
about
start
it,
digging into it.
it really scares me, especially say if we ever have children, if we have girls or boys, it's like trying to make sure that they don't get abused, because it mentally scars you for the rest of your life.
So if you've got any experiences you want to share with us, or you've been touched by any of these topics today, then please feel free to email us down below. We'd love to hear or support you any way we can with whatever you're going through. So send us an email on it, and we'll also link down some local charities and support groups and support networks that you can use, because your voice is very important, and sometimes these things need to be better out in the open so that justice can be served.
And also, if someone you send an email or ask for a help and no one came back to you, that doesn't mean people not gonna listen to you. They will come back to you. Please keep your patience, and also keep sending email. Don't get discouraged.